Entire towns do not simply disappear. And yet, history holds stories of places where whole communities have been erased, leaving behind nothing but whispers. No bodies, no battlefields, no goodbyes, just silence. From the mysterious fate of the Roanoke colonists in the 16th century, to a vanished Inuit village in the frozen north, to a Brazilian town where hundreds of people were never seen again. 3 different places, 3 disappearances. And one question: how can an entire town vanish overnight? Most of history is written in certainty. We know who fought which wars, who ruled which kingdoms, who invented which machines. But then there are the shadows, stories so bizarre that even historians struggle to explain them. Stories where logic breaks down and mystery takes over. Few mysteries have fascinated researchers more than the disappearances of whole communities. Not individuals, not families, but entire populations. Today, we explore 3 of the strangest cases, and we begin with the most famous, the lost colony of Roanoke. In 1587, more than 100 English settlers crossed the Atlantic, hoping to establish a permanent colony in the New World. They landed on Roanoke Island off the coast of present-day North Carolina. Led by Governor John White, they built homes, planted crops, and tried to survive. But life in the New World was harsh. Food was scarce. Relations with neighboring native tribes shifted constantly between uneasy friendship and outright hostility. Before long, White made a difficult decision. He would return to England to gather supplies, leaving behind his family and the rest of the colony. He promised to come back as soon as possible. But when he finally returned, 3 years later, in 1590, the colony was gone. Completely gone. Houses were dismantled, not destroyed. There were no signs of battle, no bodies, no mass graves. The settlers had not been slaughtered. They had simply disappeared. The only clue was carved into a wooden post. A single word, Croatoan. Another carving, on a tree, contained the letters Cro. White believed this might point to Croatoan Island, where a friendly tribe lived. But when he searched there, he found no trace of his people. So, what happened to them? Theories have multiplied for centuries. Some believe the settlers integrated with native tribes and slowly lost their English identity. Others think they may have tried to sail back to England and perished at sea. Some argue they succumbed to disease or starvation, and their remains were scattered by time. But there has never been definitive evidence. No bones, no artifacts, no graves. The colony simply ceased to exist. The lost colony of Roanoke became one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of American history, and the first in a long line of vanished towns. If Roanoke seems distant and clouded by centuries of speculation, the disappearance of Anjikuni Village is far more recent, and no less chilling. In November 1930, a fur trapper named Joe LaBelle traveled to a small Inuit settlement on the shores of Lake Anjikuni in Canada's Northwest Territories. He expected to be welcomed by the villagers, as he had been before. Instead, he walked into silence. The village was deserted. Houses stood open. Food lay untouched. Rifles leaned against walls. Nothing had been stolen. Nothing broken. Yet the people, around 30 men, women, and children, were gone. Even more unsettling were the sled dogs. They had been left tied to posts, where they eventually starved. The villagers had depended on those dogs for survival. To abandon them made no sense. And then there was the graveyard. Several graves appeared disturbed, as though bodies had been removed. When Canadian police investigated, they too found nothing. No footprints in the snow, no trail of escape. Eyewitnesses later claimed they had seen mysterious lights in the sky above the lake on the night of the disappearance. Was it mass flight? A violent abduction? Something beyond human explanation? The story of Anjikuni Village remains one of the most unsettling unsolved disappearances of the 20th century. 7 years before the Anjikuni case, another town disappeared. This time, it was in the heart of Brazil. The story goes that in 1923, travelers entered the remote jungle town of Hoer Verde. To their shock, the town was empty. 600 people had lived there. Yet, not a single resident remained. Meals sat unfinished on tables. Tools lay abandoned. The settlement looked as if its people had simply stood up and walked away. But the most chilling clue was discovered inside a schoolhouse. On a blackboard, in chalk, were scrawled the words, "There is no salvation." What happened to the 600 villagers? Some suggest they fled due to political violence during a turbulent period in Brazil's history. Others believe disease or bandit attacks forced them out. Some, however, lean toward supernatural explanations, whispers of curses, abductions, or stranger things lurking in the jungle. Skeptics argue that Hoer Verde's story may itself be more legend than fact, since records of the town are difficult to verify. But whether real or exaggerated, the tale continues to haunt those who hear it. 3 different towns, 3 different times and places. And yet, the similarities are hard to ignore. Each disappearance left behind no bodies, no signs of mass escape. Each left only fragments, a carved word, a dug-up grave, a chalkboard message. The explanations range from the mundane, hunger, migration, war, to the extraordinary, alien abductions, supernatural curses, or portals to other worlds. But perhaps the most terrifying truth is the simplest. We don't know. We expect history to leave us answers, but sometimes it leaves us only silence. The lost colony of Roanoke, the vanished Inuit village of Anjikuni, the ghost town of Hoer Verde. 3 places where hundreds of people disappeared without explanation. Were they victims of nature, of violence, or of their own desperate choices? Or did something stranger reach out and erase them? The stories remain unsolved, haunting reminders that history is not always certain. Entire towns can vanish, and when they do, they leave behind not just empty homes, but questions that echo across centuries. If you want to uncover more of history's hidden mysteries, join me on this journey. Subscribe, share this story, and let's keep exploring the secrets that time has tried to erase. Because sometimes, the most chilling parts of history are the ones we still can't explain.